In the silence between heartbeats, ancient words echo through time. Words written in blood, sweat, and divine breath upon weathered parchments. Words that once governed every aspect of human existence. Words that shaped civilizations, dopplet kingdoms, and forged the very foundations of faith. Words that we have forgotten. Tonight, we stand at the crossroads of comfort and truth. You believe you know the path of righteousness, don't you? You've memorized the 10 Commandments, avoided the obvious sins. Yet what if I told you that with every sunrise, you break laws written by the finger of God? What if your morning routine is a symphony of forgotten transgressions? The rabbis of old spoke of 613 commandments hidden within the Torah. 613 divine ordinances that governed every breath, every step, every thought. Most believers today know perhaps 20, maybe 30 at most. The rest lie buried beneath centuries of interpretation, tradition, and willful ignorance. But ignorance, as any judge will tell you, is no defense before the throne of judgment. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. We will excavate truths that religious institutions have allowed to crumble into dust. We will confront laws so specific, so demanding, that they will shake your understanding of faith itself. You may discover that the clothes on your back, the food in your mouth, the words you speak are all forbidden. Are you prepared to see your life through the lens of forgotten scripture? Welcome to the uncomfortable truth. Welcome to the weight of words you never knew existed. Welcome to the discovery that righteousness is far more complex than you ever imagined. Tonight, we remember what was meant to never be forgotten. Tonight, we ask, are you breaking them?
Before we start, I need your help. Subscribe to this channel so we can keep bringing these hidden truths to light.
Look down at what you're wearing right now. Run your fingers across the fabric that shields your skin from the world. Feel the texture, the weave, the comfort you take for granted. Now consider this. You might be clothed in abomination. Leviticus 19:19 whispers a law most have never heard. You shall not wear a garment of cloth made of 2 kinds of material. The Hebrew word is shatnez, a mixing that God himself declared forbidden. Linen and wool, cotton and polyester, silk and synthetic blends. Your closet may be a warehouse of transgressions, each thread a silent rebellion. But why would the creator of the universe care about fabric? Ancient wisdom speaks of spiritual contamination through physical mixture. The Israelites understood that even the threads they wore carried cosmic significance. Pure materials reflected pure hearts, unmixed intentions, undivided loyalty to the divine. Modern convenience has made us forget that our choices echo in realms unseen. Every blended fiber whispers the question, can you serve 2 masters? Walk through any department store and count the violations. Polyester cotton blends dominate the racks like monuments to forgotten law. Your favorite shirt, your comfortable jeans, your winter coat, all potential evidence. The fashion industry has built an empire on what ancient law calls detestable. How many believers dress themselves in disobedience each morning without knowing? Consider the weight of this revelation as it settles upon your shoulders. If God numbered every hair on your head, does he not see every thread on your body? If righteousness requires attention to the smallest details, what does your wardrobe say? The threads of transgression may be woven more deeply into your life than you ever imagined. Tomorrow morning, will you dress differently? Your kitchen holds secrets that would make the ancient priests recoil in horror. Vegetables that seem innocent, fruits that appear blessed, grains that look pure. Yet hidden within your pantry lie edible abominations that most believers consume without question. Deuteronomy and Leviticus don't only forbid pork and shellfish. They speak of plants, of combinations, of harvests that defile the soul. Consider the humble grape, symbol of joy, abundance, and divine blessing. But what of the grapes picked from young vines, From plants less than 4 years old, Leviticus 19:23 declares such fruit uncircumcised and utterly forbidden. That wine you blessed at communion, that juice you gave your children, could it be the fruit of trees that should never have been touched? The law goes deeper, stranger, more specific than modern minds can fathom. You shall not sow your field with mixed seed. Commands Leviticus dic snuff. But what of the produce from fields where different crops grew side by side? Your salad may contain the offspring of forbidden agricultural unions, each bite a testament to humanity's rebellion against divine order. Ancient Israel understood that even the earth itself could be defiled by disobedience. Mixed plantings created spiritual pollution that contaminated everything they produced. The Talmud lists dozens of forbidden combinations that most have never heard of. Radishes grown near cucumbers, wheat sown among barley. The very soil cries out against the mixing of what God intended to keep separate. Stand in your kitchen tonight and truly see what surrounds you. The fruits and vegetables that seem so natural, so healthy, so blessed. How many carry the mark of forbidden mixture, of premature harvest, of unholy combination? If we are to be holy as He is holy, must we not consider even what grows from the ground? The forbidden harvest may be closer than you think. Every day, you speak approximately 16 nil words, 16,000 opportunities for blessing or for damnation. Most believers focus on avoiding obvious profanity, crude jokes, or harsh criticism. But what if I told you that some of your most casual expressions violate ancient divine law? What if your everyday speech patterns are littered with forgotten sins? I swear to God it's true. You say without thinking, I swear on my mother's grave. Rolls off your tongue like a prayer. But Matthew 5:34 records Christ's own words. Do not swear at all. James 5:12 warns that anything beyond yes and no comes from evil. Yet how many believers pepper their speech with casual oaths, thinking them harmless? The third commandment forbids taking the Lord's name in vain. Most assume this means avoiding obvious blasphemy or crude religious jokes. But the Hebrew lotisa means far more than we've been taught. It encompasses every careless mention, every casual reference, every thoughtless invocation. Oh my God, you gasp in surprise, and ancient law trembles. Consider the weight of words in cultures that understood their power. Speech could heal or destroy, bless or curse, create or obliterate. The rabbis taught that every word was recorded, every syllable weighed in divine scales. Idle speech wasn't just discouraged, it was considered a form of spiritual murder. In our age of endless chatter, how much death do we speak each day? Reflect on the conversations you've had just this week, the casual promises you made without intention to keep them, the Lord's name you've mentioned in jest, in frustration, in emphasis, the oaths you've sworn to add weight to trivial statements. If words have power, what kind of power have you been wielding? In your pocket lies a device more powerful than any ancient oracle, a window into infinite knowledge, endless connection, boundless temptation. Your smartphone, that extension of your very soul in the modern age. But what would Moses say about the glowing screen that commands your attention? What forgotten laws govern the realm of pixels and notifications? Consider the ancient command to guard your eyes from forbidden sights. Job 31:1 speaks of making a covenant with one's eyes to avoid lustful gazing. Yet your device delivers temptation directly to your retinas with algorithmic precision. Social media feeds designed to capture, to ensnare, to make you stumble. How many biblical boundaries do you cross with each casual scroll? The law of lashon hara, evil speech, prohibited spreading gossip, slander, or harmful words. Even true information shared with malicious intent was considered spiritual murder. But what of the share button, the retweet, the forwarded message? You participate in the destruction of reputations with a single tap. Digital gossip travels at the speed of light, carrying ancient curses in modern form. Ecclesiastes warns that a time to be silent is as sacred as a time to speak. Yet your online presence never sleeps, never rests, never observes the Sabbath of silence. Constant connectivity becomes a form of idolatry, the worship of immediate response. The ancient Israelites built golden calves. We build digital altars to perpetual availability. When did the fear of missing out replace the fear of the Lord? Tonight, count the hours you've spent staring into that glowing rectangle. Calculate the minutes lost to mindless scrolling, meaningless interactions, digital distractions. Consider what ancient law might say about making an idol of information. If your phone were removed tomorrow, would you experience withdrawal or worship? The digital wilderness may be the most dangerous territory your soul has ever entered. Your bank account tells a story that reaches beyond quarterly statements. Every transaction, every investment, every financial decision carries moral weight. Ancient Israel understood that money was never merely material. It was a test of character, a measure of faithfulness, a reflection of the heart. But how many forgotten economic laws govern your modern financial life? Deuteronomy 23:19 forbids charging interest to your brother, any fellow believer. You shall not lend him your money at interest, nor give him your food a profit. Yet Christian banks charge Christians interest, and believers profit from believers' need. The entire modern banking system rests upon what ancient law calls abomination: your mortgage, your credit cards, your savings account, all potentially tainted by forbidden gain. Consider the law of the sabbatical year. Every 7th year, all debts were forgiven. Leviticus 25 commands the complete cancellation of what others owed. But modern financial systems trap people in perpetual servitude to debt. Student loans that outlive the students, mortgages that span generations. We have built economic Egypt where ancient Israel was commanded to create freedom. The Torah speaks of just weights and measures, honest dealing in all transactions. But what of the hidden fees, the fine print, the terms designed to deceive? What of investments in industries that profit from human misery and moral decay? Your retirement portfolio may be financing the very sins you claim to oppose. If money is the root of evil, what evil are you helping to grow? Examine your financial life through the lens of forgotten law. Consider where your money comes from and where it goes. Ask yourself, would the ancient prophets approve of your economic choices? If every dollar is a moral vote, what kind of world are you voting for? The economics of eternity may demand a complete restructuring of your material life. Step across the threshold of any modern church and feel the weight of centuries. These sacred spaces, these halls of worship, these sanctuaries of the faithful. But what if the very buildings where we seek God's presence violate His ancient commands? What if our houses of worship have become monuments to forgotten transgressions? What if we have defiled the very places we've set apart as holy? Leviticus 26:1 forbids the creation of figured stones and sculptured images in places of worship. You shall not make idols for yourselves, or erect an image or pillar. Yet stained glass windows depict biblical scenes. Statues of saints fill sacred corners. Ornate carvings, religious art, decorative imagery, all potentially forbidden. Have we turned our churches into the very things ancient law called abomination? Consider the mixing of the sacred and the secular within modern sanctuary walls. Coffee shops in the lobby, gift stores selling trinkets, stages designed for entertainment. The temple courts were cleansed by Christ Himself when commerce corrupted worship. Yet we invite the marketplace directly into the house of prayer. When did the sanctuary become indistinguishable from the shopping mall? Ancient Israel understood that approaching God required specific preparation, precise ritual. Priests underwent purification ceremonies before entering the Holy of Holies. But modern worshippers arrive unwashed from worldly pursuits, minds cluttered with distractions. We treat the sacred space like a casual meeting place rather than the throne room of eternity. Has familiarity bred not just contempt, but complete unconsciousness of the divine? The prophet Isaiah warned that God's ways are not our ways, His thoughts not our thoughts. Yet we've redesigned worship to match our preferences, our comfort, our entertainment needs. Forgotten laws govern every aspect of approaching the divine presence. If God is truly unchanging, do these laws simply disappear because we find them inconvenient? The sanctuary defiled may be the greatest tragedy of modern faith. Walk through your place of worship with new eyes tonight. See the images, the decorations, the commercial activities, the casual atmosphere. Ask yourself, what would the ancient priests say about this space? If holiness requires separation, what have we mixed that should remain pure? The house of God may have become something he no longer recognizes. Your body is a temple, or so you've been told. But what if that temple bears markings that ancient law declares abominable? What if the very flesh you inhabit carries signs of rebellion against divine command? Leviticus 19:28 speaks with unmistakable clarity about what you do to your skin. You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves. The needle pierces flesh. Ink flows beneath skin. Permanent art decorates mortal canvas. Millions of believers bear tattoos, crosses, Bible verses, religious imagery. They mark their bodies with sacred symbols, thinking they honor God. But ancient law sees only defiance, only the corruption of what was made perfect. Can you honor the Creator by altering His creation? Consider the deeper meaning behind these forgotten prohibitions. The Israelites were commanded to be separate, distinct, unmarked by pagan practices. Tattoos were the domain of idol worshippers, death cults, practitioners of dark arts. Your skin was to remain as God made it, pure, unaltered, holy. But modern Christians decorate themselves like ancient pagans, calling it worship. The prohibition extends beyond tattoos to any deliberate scarification or marking, piercings beyond the traditional ear, implants that alter natural form. Body modification in any form violates the principle of divine design. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, but apparently, that's not enough. Humanity always seeks to improve upon what God called very good. Stand before a mirror tonight and examine the temple of your flesh. Count the piercings, trace the tattoos, catalog the modifications you've made. Consider what message you send to heaven with each deliberate alteration. If your body belongs to God, did you have permission to redecorate? The mark upon your flesh may be a signature of rebellion you never intended to write. Saturday night becomes Sunday morning without pause or recognition. The rhythm of creation, 6 days of work, 1 of rest, pulses through eternity. But when did you last observe a true Sabbath, complete and uncompromised? When did you last let the world spin without your participation for 24 sacred hours? The 4th commandment may be the most violated law in modern Christianity. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. Thunders from Sinai. Not suggest, not recommend, not consider, remember, and keep. Yet your Sabbath looks remarkably like any other day with a brief religious interruption. Shopping after church, working from home, endless connectivity and productivity. The Sabbath has been reduced to a morning appointment rather than a sacred rhythm. Ancient Israel understood that Sabbath observance was a matter of life and death. Numbers 15 records the stoning of a man who gathered sticks on the Sabbath day. Gathering sticks, such a simple act, sus severe consequences. Yet you conduct full commercial transactions, operate machinery, maintain your digital presence. If gathering wood deserved death, what does your Sabbath activity deserve? Consider the profound theology embedded in Sabbath rest. It declares that you are not indispensable, that the world can function without your input. It forces recognition that God, not human effort, sustains creation. But modern believers resist such surrender, such admission of limitation. The Sabbath challenges the idol of productivity that rules contemporary life. Examine your last 100 Sabbaths with uncomfortable honesty. How many involved work, shopping, extensive travel, or unnecessary labor? How many were indistinguishable from secular days, except for religious attendance? If the Sabbath is a sign between God and His people, what sign are you displaying? The Sabbath shattered may be evidence of a covenant forgotten, a relationship abandoned. In your refrigerator sits evidence of ancient law violated with every meal. Red meat, carefully packaged, conveniently prepared, seemingly innocent. But Genesis 9:4 and Leviticus 17:14 speak with chilling clarity about consumption. You shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. Every rare steak, every blood sausage, Every inadequately drained cut carries forbidden life. Modern meat processing pays little attention to ancient drainage requirements. The blood that carries the soul of the animal remains trapped within the flesh. Kosher and halal traditions attempt to honor these forgotten laws. But most Christian consumers give no thought to the life force they consume. You may be eating not just meat, but the very essence that God declared off limits. Consider the deeper spiritual implications of consuming blood. Ancient wisdom understood that blood carries more than nutrients. It carries identity. The Talmud teaches that consuming blood transfers the nature of the consumed creature. You become what you eat in ways more profound than physical nutrition. What spiritual contamination enters your body through improperly prepared meat? The prohibition extends beyond obvious sources to hidden blood in processed foods. Blood meal used in agriculture. Blood-derived additives in commercial products. Gelatin from improperly slaughtered animals. Sauces enriched with blood derivatives. Your pantry may contain dozens of violations you never considered. The industrial food system has made blood consumption virtually unavoidable. Tonight, before your next meal, pause and consider the life that died for your sustenance. Was that life properly honored? Its blood properly drained? Its essence properly respected? If every creature belongs to God, what right do you have to consume its very soul? The ancient law still echoes. The life of the flesh is in the blood. The blood that cries out may be crying against you. Walk through any modern agricultural field and witness efficiency perfected. Every inch maximized, every corner cultivated, every grain harvested with mechanical precision. But Leviticus 19:9 speaks of corners left unharvested, gleanings left behind. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your field right up to its edge. What divine purpose lies in deliberate inefficiency, in intentional loss? The law commanded farmers to leave the corners of their fields for the poor and the stranger. Ruth gleaned in the fields of Boaz, not by charity, but by divine right. The hungry had legal access to the margins, the forgotten edges, the overlooked remnants. But modern agriculture leaves nothing behind, feeds nothing but profit margins. Corporate farming has eliminated the very spaces where mercy once grew. Consider the spiritual principle embedded in this forgotten law. God designed abundance with built-in provision for the marginalized. The corner left unharvested was not waste. It was worship in agricultural form. It declared that human need mattered more than maximum yield. But we have optimized compassion out of our food systems entirely. This extends beyond literal farming to every area of economic activity. What corners do you leave in your business practices? Your budgets? Your resource allocation? Do you maximize every opportunity for personal gain, or leave margins for others' needs? The law of corners challenges the idol of efficiency that governs modern life. Perhaps some things are more important than optimized returns. Stand in any supermarket and see the result of cornerless harvests. Abundance for those with money, scarcity for those without. Food deserts in poor neighborhoods while suburban stores overflow with options. The corners that should feed the hungry now feed only corporate shareholders. What if poverty persists because we've forgotten how to harvest with mercy? Your family tree carries more than names and dates, hidden within your bloodline like curses and blessings, guilt and redemption. Exodus 20:5 warns that the sins of fathers are visited upon children to the third and fourth generation. But what sins flow through your veins from ancestors you never knew? What forgotten transgressions cast shadows over your present life? Ancient Israel understood that families were spiritual units bound across time. The choices of one generation created consequences for those yet unborn. Blood carried not just genetics but spiritual inheritance, both blessing and curse. Your struggles, your patterns, your inexplicable difficulties may have ancient roots. The genealogy of guilt reaches backward further than you've ever imagined. Consider what your ancestors might have done to invite divine judgment. Did they worship false gods? Break sacred covenants? Spill innocent blood? Did they profit from slavery? Practice usury? Oppress the poor and defenseless? The sins you've never committed may still be written against your account. Generational curses don't recognize individual innocence or personal righteousness. The law provided mechanisms for breaking these inherited chains. Confession of ancestral sin, restitution for inherited wrongs, ritual cleansing of bloodlines. But modern believers rarely consider the spiritual debts passed down through generations. You assume your slate is clean because your personal sins are forgiven. Yet ancient guilt may explain why breakthrough seems impossible, why patterns persist. Research your family history, not just for genealogy, but for spiritual archaeology. What did your great-grandparents do that might require acknowledgement and repentance? What curses might explain the recurring struggles in your family line? If the sins of the fathers visit the children, someone must break the cycle. The genealogy of guilt demands not just personal salvation, but ancestral reckoning. Every day you encounter death without recognition, without ritual, without cleansing. Ancient law understood that death was contagious, that corpses carried spiritual pollution. Numbers 19:11 declares anyone who touches a dead body unclean for 7 days. But modern life brings you into constant contact with the spiritually contaminated. How often do you handle death without even knowing it? Consider the leather products you use daily: shoes, belts, wallets, furniture. Each piece crafted from the hide of dead animals, tanned with chemicals and time. Ancient law would require purification rituals after handling such objects. But you wrap yourself in death, sit upon death, walk in death without a thought. Your daily accessories may be monuments to spiritual contamination you never considered. The prohibition extends beyond obvious corpses to any product derived from death. Gelatin from bones, cosmetics containing animal derivatives, medications with death-based ingredients. Modern manufacturing has made death contact virtually unavoidable in daily life. You consume death, wear death, surround yourself with death while seeking spiritual purity. How can you approach the God of life while draped in symbols of mortality? Ancient Israel practiced ritual washing, waiting periods, and purification ceremonies. 7 days of separation, specific cleansing protocols, careful attention to contamination. But modern believers assume that good intentions override ancient requirements. You enter worship services carrying death on your person and wonder why God feels distant. Perhaps holiness requires more separation than contemporary comfort allows. Examine everything you've touched today through the lens of ancient purity laws. Count the leather items, the death-derived products, the contaminated surfaces. Consider how much of your life involves contact with what God declared unclean. If death is the last enemy to be destroyed, why do you embrace its presence so casually? The touch of death may explain why spiritual vitality feels so elusive. Look into any mirror and see more than your reflection staring back. See the violation of ancient wisdom that warned against human vanity and self-obsession. See the breach of laws that governed how the faithful should regard their own image. Job 31:1 speaks of making a covenant with one's eyes, but what about your reflection? What forgotten prohibitions surround the simple act of looking at yourself? Ancient Israel understood that excessive self-regard was a form of idolatry. The worship of one's own image, the obsession with physical appearance, the pride of the flesh. Yet modern believers spend hours before mirrors, perfecting their image for public consumption. Social media has turned self-reflection into a global exhibition of vanity. When did admiring your reflection become more important than seeking God's face? Consider how much time you invest in your appearance versus your spiritual development. Minutes before mirrors multiply into hours, days, years of self-focused attention. The ancient saints covered their heads, avoided mirrors, practiced deliberate humility. But you document every angle, filter every flaw, curate every public appearance. Has your reflection become your most faithful idol? The law of modesty extends beyond clothing to encompass the entire presentation of self. Proverbs 31 describes a woman whose beauty comes from the fear of the Lord within. But modern culture, including Christian culture, prizes external beauty above internal transformation. You spend more on cosmetics than charity, more on fashion than the poor. The mirror reflects not just your face, but your misplaced priorities. Stand before your mirror tonight and ask uncomfortable questions. How many hours have you spent perfecting your image this week? How many dollars invested in appearance versus spiritual growth? If your reflection is what others see, what does it say about what you worship? The mirror of vanity may be showing you someone God no longer recognizes. In the beginning was the Word, but what about the spaces between words? What about the silence that gives meaning to sound? The pause that creates reverence? Ancient worship understood that approaching God required not just right words, but right silence. Habakkuk 2:20 declares, "The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him." Yet modern worship has become an endless cascade of noise, music, and human activity. Consider the last time you experienced true silence in God's presence. Not the brief pause between songs, not the momentary quiet during prayer requests. True silence, the kind that makes your soul uncomfortable, that forces confrontation with eternity. Ancient temples were designed for contemplation, meditation, awe-inspiring quiet. But contemporary worship spaces fear silence like they fear irrelevance. The Psalms speak of being still and knowing that He is God. Stillness not as inactivity, but as active waiting, intentional listening, deliberate receptivity. Yet your worship services are choreographed to avoid any moment of uncomfortable quiet. Every second filled with music, announcements, activities, human-generated stimulation. When did we decide that God needed our help to fill the silence? Sacred silence was once considered the highest form of prayer. The mystics sought God in wordless contemplation, in the quiet beyond human language. But modern believers seem terrified of unstructured time with the divine. You need worship leaders to guide every moment, musicians to soundtrack every emotion. Has the church forgotten that sometimes God speaks most clearly in silence? Sit in complete silence for 60 seconds and feel the discomfort rise within you. Notice your compulsion to fill the quiet with activity, with thought, with distraction. Consider how rarely you offer God the gift of your undivided, unspoken attention. If He is truly in His holy temple, why do you refuse to keep silence before Him? The silence of the sanctuary may be the most violated commandment in modern worship. We have journeyed through forgotten corridors of divine law together. We have uncovered prohibitions that challenge every aspect of modern faith. We have seen how the comfortable Christianity of today violates ancient commands. But now comes the most difficult question of all. What will you do with what you know? The weight of remembering may be heavier than the burden of ignorance ever was. Knowledge creates responsibility, and responsibility demands response. You cannot unknow what has been revealed, cannot unfeel the conviction that follows truth. Every mixed fabric, every casual oath, every Sabbath violation now carries conscious weight. The innocence of ignorance has been stripped away by the light of forgotten law. Will you embrace the discomfort of obedience or retreat into the comfort of compromise? Consider the cost of implementing these ancient requirements in modern life. Your wardrobe would need complete replacement, your diet entirely restructured, your speech patterns reformed, your work schedule revolutionized, your priorities realigned. The financial cost alone would be staggering, the social cost potentially devastating. Is faithfulness worth such a price? Or are these laws truly obsolete? Yet something within you resonates with these forgotten commands, doesn't it? Some deep recognition that true holiness might indeed require such specificity. The same God who counted the hairs on your head surely notices the threads in your clothing. The same Christ who spoke of accounting for every idle word cares about your casual oaths. Perhaps the complexity of righteousness reflects the complexity of the God who defines it. Stand at the crossroads between comfort and conviction, between tradition and truth. Feel the weight of 613 commandments pressing against your simplified faith. Understand that every choice you make from this moment forward is now informed by ancient law. The forgotten has been remembered. The buried has been excavated. The ignored has been acknowledged. The weight of remembering will either crush you or transform you. There is no middle ground. You came seeking knowledge of forgotten laws. You have found that the laws remember you, even when you have forgotten them. The question is no longer whether you are breaking them. The question is whether you will continue breaking them now that you know. In the silence that follows revelation, Eternity waits for your answer.